in front of the speakers and the screen. Hallelujah. Jimmy on the microphone, just like the Lord intended. This is Jimmy Lakey. Hey. Unleashed, unbeat, unfiltered, unfiltered. There's the things you're afraid to say. This is the day the Lord has made from the house of Lakey. And the Lakey Entertainment Towers be proclaimed. Streamcast, podcast, broadcast, information, entertainment in Jesus' name. Oh, yeah. From the house of Lakey to the ends of the earth, you are tuned in to Jimmy Lakey. Unleashed. Oh, this is Jimmy Lakey. Yeah. Unfilled. Unafraid says the things you're afraid to say. This is the day the Lord has made from the house of Lakey.
And the Lakey Entertainment Towers be proclaimed.
Streamcast, podcast, broadcast, information and infotainment in Jesus' name.
I'm in front of the speakers and you're in front of the microphone just like the Lord intended, says Brother Leroy. And I believe he's speaking the word of the Lord there because I'm here and you're there. So here we are together. And welcome to the program, everybody. Thursday, almost Friday. Ash Wednesday was yesterday. Always refreshing to see all the ashes on the foreheads at Fox News. A lot of good Catholics there. I'm not sure about CNN or MSNBC. I'm guessing there were many ashes on the forehead. Anyway, good day to all of you. Thursday, glad to have you here on the program. The 19th day of February, year of our Lord, 2026. And as you heard Brother Leroy explain, I am Jimmy Lakey, and I'm esteemed and happy to be here because you're here. And if you weren't here, I'd be kind of bored. So thanks for being here. Thousands of earballs will hear this show unleashed from the confines of corporate radio. I've worked for the iHeart, I've worked for the Cumulus, I've worked for the Salem, I've worked for them all, but now I work for you. Well, I work for myself now. Anyway, good to have all of you here on the program. Jay Ratliff's coming up on the show today. He's our aviation and travel expert. Everybody loves Jay Ratliff. Been with me back since the terrestrial radio days. Ratliff will be with us at about 1 hour from right now. We'll do a segment with him talking about some interesting travel and aviation news. Always a fun segment for me, at least, because I love to travel. And I travel a lot, so I look at that. Also, an interesting take on the Billy the Kid, a little story of history this morning. A guy by the name of Dugan Bridges is going to be on the show in about half hour, 25 minutes. He's the writer and director of Blackwater Draw, The Making of the Billy the Kid. You don't want to miss this. If you're a student of history and parallels of history to the modern day, you do not want to miss that. All right, you're waking up to some breaking news, depending on you have legit news or non-news the channel on. The royal, formerly known as Prince Andrew, was arrested overnight. It's fallout from the Epstein list, and the details are forthcoming. But evidently, according to all the news sources, his fall from the palace has led to his arrest. Of course, his mother had stripped him from royal titles. He was reported his mother, Queen Elizabeth II's favorite, but the former Prince Andrew has long been a headache for the royal family, according to news reports. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested Thursday, his 66th birthday. So he was arrested this morning while you were sleeping. They were going to his house on suspicion of misconduct in public office in an inquiry stemming from his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He is the first senior British royal in modern history to be detained by the police. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was born in 1960, the second child of Queen and her husband, Prince Philip. His elder brother Charles was destined for the throne. Andrew took and tried a tested route, his military service after 22 years in the Royal Navy, including combat operations as a helicopter pilot during the 1982 Falklands Island War. Prince Andrew was named a special representative for international trade and investment in 2001. The current police investigation stems from that period in the early 2000s. It follows documents in a recently released Epstein files that suggest Andrew passed on government documents to the late financier when he was a trade envoy. The former prince has not been charged with the crime. He has long denied any wrongdoing over his Epstein links. That's the interesting part of this. They're saying the misconduct is that he was handing over documents as a trade envoy to Jeffrey Epstein. It was 2011 that he had to step down from the role in the trade with growing concerns. So going back to 2011, concerned about his friendship with Epstein, who had been sentenced to 18 months in prison after pleading guilty in 2008 for soliciting a minor for prostitution. Once dubbed a media fascination for his love life, the man in the tabloids in London called him Randy Andy. Became a regular. I love it that in the U.S. we have people named Randy, and all around the globe, the word Randy means something else. I always thought that was kind of funny. When I learned that, I thought that's funny, but I'm a guy. I thought that was kind of funny. Randy Andy became his nickname in the headlines in the UK. And after the Epstein arrest again in 2019, he gave a disastrous interview in which he tried to explain away his contacts with Epstein, trying to say I didn't do anything. But he has now been arrested on investigation for wrongdoing. And we will find out he's now in police custody, and he still remains 8th in line to the British throne. So everybody stand by and see what happens. Now King Charles has issued a statement that says the law must run its course, and we must find out what exactly happens. So it's going to be very interesting to watch this unfold. Some people think it's just a toppling of the royals. Did they protect him too long? Did they cut ties with him early enough? Not everyone knows, but that is a breaking news story. Former Prince Andrew has been arrested and is being detained in the UK upon investigation of inappropriate behavior by a person in authority or a higher elected official or a non-elected official, government official, I think is how they phrase that. Give me your thoughts on that. I've got a question for you that's coming up, a question of the day that anybody who shares a bed with someone else, you may have an answer to. You may want to sound off on this. It's called your bedtime gap. Stand by. We will talk about your bedtime gap here in just a moment. You don't want to miss this. The question of the day coming up. But I find it interesting also that the Department of Justice is on the march here. Our Attorney General, Director of the FBI, Mr. Patel, Kash Patel, has made an announcement that hasn't gotten a lot of news, but I find it to be quite interesting. Kash Patel says the FBI has uncovered the Antifa funding sources. All these protesters, these blue hairs that are trying to run over ICE officers and provoke ICE officers and blow their whistles on the street. You have to say, a day or so protest or weekend, okay, that's fine. But these are career protesters. It's noted that many of these protesters are following ICE from city to city. If they're not in Washington, D.C., they were in Minneapolis. They're always somewhere. And even some reporters recognize that they are the exact same people that show up city to city. So inquiring minds like you and I, you and me, want to know, how is it that these people don't have to work? How is it that they can trek around, stay in hotels? Maybe they sleep like homeless on the streets. I don't know. But it's obvious that something's not right. They show up on the scene and there's custom-made signs made. They show up at the Grammys. They have little buttons made. Who's funding all this nonsense? Who's funding this crap that we've had to put up with by the American left and the Hollywood and these dang protesters on the streets? Well, I have an answer. FBI Director Kash Patel said Wednesday that investigators have uncovered what he describes as the major funding streams tied to Antifa. This revelation signals a possible new enforcement action, according to a report from the Washington Examiner. Yesterday, Kash Patel was on the Dan Bongino show, who's now streaming on the Rumbles, I believe. And he said under Donald Trump, they've been conducting a financial investigation into how demonstrators linked to these far-left movements are supported. How do they show up everywhere? Kash Patel said, quote, "These organizations don't operate alone or in silence. They operate with a very heavy stream of funding. And we started looking into it, and guess what? We found them." Now, Kash Patel is not identifying specific donors or organizations or the financial mechanisms, but he said more details could emerge in the coming months as the investigation is continuing. The FBI director said agents are examining whether funding has flowed through U.S.-based nonprofits, including some tax-exempt status organizations, as well as possible foreign sources. He emphasizes that investigators are focused on tracing financial support tied to the acts of violence and not to the constitutionally protected protest activity. Kash Patel said yesterday, I quote, "Money doesn't lie," describing his effort as following the money to determine. He also pointed to prosecutions the Bureau has already brought that he said were connected to Antifa-related violence, including federal arrest, convictions tied to protest incidents in multiple states. So, Mr. Patel, if you're listening, go get them, my friend. Go get them, because we all want to know how these boneheads are out there risking the life of people that are legal law enforcement officers of this nation. And they're doing so seemingly with impunity and seemingly doing it well funded. So Kash Patel says they're on it. They have found the sources, and now they're just kind of finding out the distribution chains. And he says there will be more information coming out about that. Oh, by the way, speaking of the Department of Justice, and I'll get to our question of the day, the Department of Justice, I did not get to the story yesterday, has issued some more subpoenas. Now, if you're like me, I'm like, okay, I want some subpoenas, that's fine, but I'd like to see some arrest as well. Well, this is the headline here, that the Department of Justice has issued new subpoenas in a Florida-based investigation targeting individuals who pursued actions against President Donald Trump, as well as examining the government's response to Russian interference in 2016. The initial wave of subpoenas was in November, asked recipients for documents related to the preparation of U.S. intelligence community and the probe that and the accusation that Donald Trump was a puppet of Russia. And evidently that investigation is still ongoing. Now, these investigations, I understand, they want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but sometimes we kind of think they forgot about it. They're not still pursuing it. I guess it's a good sign that they have more subpoenas going out after this on this case as of this week, but it's also a bad sign that nothing has been done as of yet. So keep a sharp eye on the Department of Justice. Kash Patel and the DOJ are talking about many investigations that are still ongoing, and we shall find out. So 2016, a long time ago. And, I don't know what the statute of limitations is. I think it depends on the charges. I know there is still a grand conspiracy charge, which takes away investigation, which takes away the statute of limitations, because it begins on the first date of the grand conspiracy and it continues to the last day. And many people think that grand conspiracy of the deep state is still going. So it's going to be interesting. More government subpoenas have been issued, and it's going to be interesting to see who gets indicted next, if anyone, because many of us who have had to put up with the lies of the American left and the Russia hoax and so many goofy things the left has lied to us about, just to control us, just to manipulate us. And it doesn't just have to be about Trump. It could be about Dr. Fauci. I really like to see some orange jumpsuits here real soon, and we shall see if we do. But Kash Patel has said, yes, we found the funding for Antifa protesters. We're investigating that, and you'll hear more. And they've also issued more subpoenas investigating the 2016 Russia probe, Russiagate, the false allegations that Donald Trump was elected only because of the help of Russia. What time do you go to bed, Delilah? I probably don't want to know, because I don't know what you're doing. How many of you, my friends, have different bedtimes? Do you go to bed all the time, most of the time, some of the time, at the same time that your bed partner? I would assume, being the fine Christian people that you are, I would assume that would be your spouse. According to a new report, the average couple has a bedtime gap. You know what a bedtime gap is, Delilah? That's when you go to bed at a different time than someone else. The average couple out there has a bedtime gap of 80 minutes. So here's the question of the day. Do you and your significant other usually go to bed at the same time, or do you go to bed and they stay up watching YouTube or ESPN, or do they go to bed and you how does it work at your casa? Do you go to bed at the exact same time on average? I mean, probably not all the time, but according to the new report, the average couple has a bedtime gap of 80 minutes. For those of you that went to public schools and can't calculate that, that is 1 hour and 20 minutes. So roughly about 2 episodes of Late Night Shark Tank on CNBC. I know I like the Shark Tank. The extra me time is nice for unwinding, but the report also finds that couples with fewer bedtime gaps tend to be happier together. And very happy couples go to bed together about 4 times per week. The less happy couples in the survey go to bed together at the same time 1 time a week. So according to the survey, if you want to be a happier couple, you got to go to bed at the same time. Now, 71% of couples say they are both night owls. 78% of couples say they're both early birds, and they say they're very happy in their relationship. But 59% of couples have 1 night owl and 1 early bird. There's a difference based on age, though. Younger couples find it more important to lessen the bedtime gap, while when you get older, you stretch that bedtime gap out. So there's a difference between the ages out there. So I guess the question of the day can be phrased many ways. But one of those is, what time do you go to bed at the same time? What time what's your bedtime gap? Is 80 minutes really high? Kevin says, no, unfortunately, I'm in bed by 6 to 7 p.m. because I'm up at 2 a.m. every day. She doesn't come to bed till about 10:50. That's pretty precise, 10:50. 10:50 p.m. because her day begins at 7 or 8. See, there's a good reason for having a bedtime gap. Now, I saw Jeff pop up on the screen, and of course, only Jeff would say something like this. What's your bedtime gap? How often do you go to bed at the same time? And Jeff says, only on Valentine's Day. Jeff, after the conversation you attributed to us last week, I just say, glad you made it to the bedroom. I was afraid for the rug, the bearskin rug. That's what I was afraid of. I apologize for that kind of humor. Jeff started it. I just jumped in here. Rich says, we go to bed about the same time every night. We wake up or get up in the morning at different times, though, usually. That's an interesting question. I've never thought of that, of what's your bedtime gap. I have this weird, this almost a strange personality thing with my sleep life, because once I became a professional, and once I started earning money and making the first round of job that I had, I was a music mogul, if you will. I was a concert promoter, artist manager, and I built the Lakey Entertainment Towers off of that fine career that I had, esteemed career. And so because I was always with artists and musicians, or maybe out at a show or a concert or on a tour bus somewhere, I was always, at times, I was up late. I was up late with the artiste out there. And then at the same time, I started dabbling my tiptoes into the talk radio world. And for some reason, people always wanted me to do morning drive, which I'm told is a compliment, because if you get the morning drive gig, that means you're top notch. The morning drive gig is a good gig. The second one is the afternoon drive, but the morning gig. So I was always this thing of, if I was doing talk radio, I was like, I gotta be in bed by 7, 8 o'clock. No, I mean, I'm one of those guys that can do. I don't think I can go as little sleep as Donald Trump does. But I'm blessed in that I can function if I don't get my full 8 hours. Let's just say that. And I probably average 5 to 6 on most nights, but I probably should do more as I get a little older. I think I feel that. But it was always weird, because there were some seasons of my life in which I was going to bed bright and early, or in the evening. Daylight, summertime is hard because it's still light outside, but you're trying to go to bed because you have a bright and early radio show to do. It had to be on the air and perky by 6 a.m. And so that was always tough, because the rest of my life, I was in the music world, hanging out with musicians late at night. And so there's been years of my life that I switched on a dime. And I don't know. So what's your bedtime gap? Everybody tell me. Aloha says, Jerry is an early bird and I'm a night owl. Yep. But that's my problem. I was a night owl in my days of marital bliss. I was a night owl. I was also the early guy. I was the guy that could wake up in the morning and talk on the radio. And she couldn't. She couldn't function. And she didn't drink coffee. So, she couldn't function before her third cup of coffee. She couldn't function before 11 because there was no coffee. She didn't do coffee. Mary says, hi, Mary. My husband's a night owl, but we go to bed at the same time. I just fall asleep on the couch an hour before we go to bed. So there's a bedtime gap. You go to bed at the same time, but there is a sleepy gap. I get it. I understand that. Let me know what your bedtime gap is. A really interesting study, something you never thought about. Some of us are like the rest of us, and it sounds like very few of us on a regular basis go to bed at the same time. I remember my grandparents as an example. It was always and my parents did this the same thing, but I'd go stay with my grandparents in the summer or go visit them. And there was a nightly routine. Grandpa worked hard, and grandma kept the house, and she would always have dinner ready when he came home because he worked hard. He'd go take a shower and get cleaned up, sit down for dinner. And then they would maybe take a walk together, or maybe just sit down in their grandpa chair, and they'd watch a couple of shows. And then they would always watch the 10 o'clock news. Now, they lived in West Texas, so we picked up the Amarillo, Texas the news. And I was a kid, and I'm like, I don't want to go to bed yet. But Grandma and Grandpa would watch the news, the local news out of Amarillo, Texas. They'd watch it until the weather news. Once the weather hit, they headed to bed, always together. Nobody's up later. It was always clockwork, always went to bed together. That's probably why they were married over 50 years, perhaps. Or they're just sleepy. I'm not sure. So what's your bedtime gap? 80% of Americans say there's a pretty good bedtime gap out there, and the 80 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes. And there's a bedtime gap, and I understand. All right, good to have all of you here on the show. What else we have here? Lenten season. Yesterday was the Ash Wednesday. How many of you give up something for Lent? I am not Catholic, but I do enjoy and do participate sometimes privately in some fasting, not just for health reasons. Intermittent fasting is a very good way to regulate your body and burn some fat, but also for spiritual reasons. I have actually pulled off a 40-day fast before, not to brag. There were some liquids involved, but it wasn't just water only. But I lost a lot of weight. I was skinny, real skinny. Maybe I should try that again. Delilah, don't say a thing over there. Don't say a thing. Now, anybody give up something for Lent? Now, I'm not sure the rules of it. I don't think you're supposed to tell what you give up for Lent, but I think fasting is a very good practice in life. And sometimes it's just one of those things of sacrifice. It could be for health reasons. I get that. But I'm talking about for religious reasons. If 14% of people gave up something for Lent, you know what catches me on that? I thought it'd be larger than that. I thought at least the sphere of influence in the people I'm around, I guess I'm around a lot of religious people who happen to maybe be Catholic. It seems like more than 14% of the people I could start naming maybe have given up something for Lent. But again, maybe you're not supposed to tell, so maybe it has not been talked about. 14% of Americans gave up something for Lent. How many big fans of anybody a big fan of Dr. It says Dr. Oz here. That's my bad. Dr. Ben Carson. President Trump made a big announcement about Dr. Ben Carson yesterday, and his announcement is that Dr. Ben Carson is going to get a big prize, a big award. No, he didn't win the lottery. No, he did not win a sweepstakes or anything. Dr. Ben Carson is going to be getting, I don't know why I put Dr. Oz on the schedule. That's my bad. He revealed Dr. Carson is going to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom in honor that probably he deserves. You could tell the crowd at the White House was very happy about this. It's part of Black History Month. President Trump announced that former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom during a White House event marking the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. As attendees at this, a lot of people of color at this event yesterday, and they started chanting 4 more years, 4 more years. But Ben's going to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and it's the highest honor and award you can have outside of a Congressional Medal of Honor. President Trump said Ben Carson would receive the nation's top civilian honor at a future ceremony, telling him, Ben, I'll be seeing you back here pretty soon. I think you're going to get the award. The announcement came as Trump mixed up tributes and cultural references with policy celebrating many exceptional African-American leaders and patriots, according to the White House press release. But Ben Carson, if you're a Ben Carson fan, he's going to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And so, Ben, congratulations to you indeed. Never good to see a grown man cry unless it's Barack Obama. Well, I don't wish ill on anyone, and I know sometimes people get emotional. I talk about Africa sometimes. I get a little teary here. It seems like that Barry got teary back in 2016. That's right. Barry Hussein Obama got a little bit teary back in 2016 when he was watching election night results and realized that Donald Trump was going to be his successor, that Donald Trump was going to move in the Oval Office, and it wasn't going to be Hillary Rodham Kinkles Clinton. I find this to be just a funny story. I'm not sure why it's so funny. I'm not even sure why it is a story. But it's quite interesting to let you see the mental pathway that these jackwagons are on. The 2016 presidential election, memorable, of course. Democrats, the media thought they had the race in the bag, that Donald Trump didn't stand a chance of a snowball in hell, and that Hillary Rodham Kinkles Clinton was going to be the one to ascend the throne and continue the Clinton crime family, right? Well, apparently the news of Donald Trump winning and pulling off the win was too much for Barry Hussein Obama to deal with, and his trusted henchwoman, Susan Rice. Yep, those criminals there, they started to hear explosively that Donald Trump was winning, and now there's a new report that the two of them broke down and cried in front of the White House staff because Donald Trump won the election. Now, I get it why Hillary Rodham Kinkles Clinton might have cried, because she thought she was going to win, but former President Barack Obama, former White House advisor Susan Rice allegedly broke down and cried in a post on X. A Real Clear Investigation senior reporter Paul Sperry claimed that more than 1,000 hours of new audio and video that had been compiled by Columbia University in cooperation with the Obama Foundation showed that Obama and Rice were allegedly so distraught over Trump's win, they broke down and cried. Here's what it says, one of the Twitter feeds. Breaking news, President Obama, National Security Advisor Susan Rice were so distraught after the Trump won in 2016, they literally broke down and wept in front of the White House staff, according to 1,100 new hours of audio and video compiled by Columbia University in cooperation with the Obama Foundation. So this is not just some right-wing blogger or Lakey Unleashed out there spreading this nonsense. This is actually research that's going to be used in the Obama Foundation, their library that they're building, that they just could not handle the fact that Hillary Rodham Kinkles Clinton was not going to. They made it in crime because maybe they thought Hillary's going to come for them. You didn't help me win, I'm going to axe you. You never know. I mean, Hillary knows a lot of dead people. She's had more friends commit. I don't know if there's anyone, when you list up the people that have been acquaintances and or friends with the Clintons, and you ask yourself how it is that they have so many friends who have committed suicide, it's rather peculiar. So I'm wondering if Barry and Susan were crying, thinking that, Hillary might be very upset that they maybe did. She wouldn't think Barry worked hard enough or Susan Rice worked hard enough. And maybe they thought Hillary Rodham Kinkles Clinton was coming for them. I don't know. Delilah, look up that number sometime. Look it up. How many friends and acquaintances of the of the Clintons have committed Harry-Carry? And some of them were miraculous suicide people. They suicided themselves. Wasn't it Vince Foster who he shot himself in the back of the head and then rolled himself up in carpet, and that was a suicide? Yeah. I'm just wondering what happened, but it's just funny. The tears of Barry Obama and Susan Rice, they cried because Hillary did not win the election, or they cried because Hillary was going to have a lot of free time and might try to come for them with a hit team. You never know. There, people are afraid of her. I mean, we got Jay Ratliff coming up at 9 o'clock. We await our new guest, Dugan Bridges, here in just a second. But I teased this story earlier. I do want to make sure I get to it this morning. I like to travel. I do travel. As a matter of fact, I was thinking early this morning that I've got a couple of trips I need to get on the schedule. I've been very busy lately. But I was just thinking of that this morning, and this is a story that caught my attention. You ready for this? Caught my attention. You ready for it? It is the story is this: airline brings back the golden age of travel. You know what this is about? This is fantastic. We'll talk. Jay Ratliff's going to be on the show. We'll talk more travel later, but it's kind of interesting. Ever see those old videos or photos of people traveling? They're sitting there, the catering car, the prime ribs coming down the aisle. You're like, why can't it be like that anymore? Yesterday, I went on an entire diatribe talking about grown-ass adults that show up on airplanes looking like 3-year-olds who just climbed out of bed. It's ridiculous, and you should have to fly idiot airlines. You should not be allowed on Southwest or American or United. Nope, you got to ride with the idiots. There should. Anyway, there's a popular food trend as American Airlines is marking its 100th anniversary with a nostalgic nod to the past. Not going to be exactly as luxurious as what you think, but it's going to be like the 1920s again. Beginning February the 9th, which was just last week, travelers are able to pre-order special dishes with menus appearing on select flights in March. So if you're flying on American Airlines in the month of March, they have many of your flights will have available pre-order special dishes. They're not going to have the carving station come down the aisle, but there's going to be dishes like beef Wellington, prawn cocktail. Which is a shrimp cocktail, Delilah, prawns. The move also apparently addresses growing frustration that in-flight dining has been less than satisfactory in recent years. Now, when was the last time you had a meal on a plane? Do you remember the first meal you ever had on a plane? Now, I travel to Africa several times a year, so I get meals on planes all the time. But I remember as a young man, I had not flown that far, and I was flying back from Miami. I was like 20. And we were in coach. I was on a mission trip with my church, flying back from Miami back to Dallas. And it was early in the morning, sun was coming up, and they brought us breakfast back in coach. And I said, wow, I got to fly Miami to Dallas. And then later on, I flew another big flight. I was, oh, they don't serve breakfast back here. But then as I got more travel miles, I would fly in the front of the plane and they would serve you food. And I liked that. Then they sometimes go back of the plane, you get very disappointed because they throw some peanuts or pretzels at you. So anyway, check your American Airlines. We'll talk more about this because I think it's fascinating. And I would pay extra for not that much extra, but give me a bigger seat, give me a proper treatment as a gentleman, and make sure I don't have to sit with people that showed up at the airport dressed like 3-year-olds in their pajamas. I'd like to be on that airline on a more regular basis. Please, I think there should be, I'm the guy, there should be a dress code when you travel. If you look like you just climbed out of bed and you're older than the age of 3, you do not get to fly on the plane with me. That's just me. But these amenities of the meal, the beef Wellington, the prawn cocktails, and all that stuff is it's going to be in March. It's American Airlines celebrating their 100th birthday. I hope they get a lot of support, a lot of good feedback. And then I hope that maybe that will continue on other airlines, more proper service. Even if you're sitting back in the back of the plane, I'd like you to be treated more like ladies and gentlemen. That's just me. All right, good to have you here. Thousands of earballs will hear this show by the end of the day. We have thousands of earballs that listen on the streamcast. We, of course, we have the streamcast now. We have the podcast. We have the broadcast. Everything. Thousands of people hear it. We have the numbers to prove it, and we're always glad. So whether you're listening later in the day or you're listening live, I would tell you, we welcome you to the program, and we're glad you're here. It's the Lakey and Lee Streamcast, podcast, and broadcast. Pleasure to have you here. All right, when I first saw this topic on the email, I said, oh, we've got to book this. I think this is going to be a fantastic topic. It's a little bit of history, a little bit of the Wild West, and there's just several aspects of the story that I thought were fascinating, and I want to bring into the conversation the person that was on the pitch, and I said, we got to get him on. Dugan Bridges, a writer and director of Blackwater Draw, The Making of Billy the Kid. He's a filmmaker whose work includes multinational brands, distribution by Amazon, Time Warner, Movie Maker magazine. During his career, he has had 5 projects reach distributions, received over 100 international film festival selections, 45 awards, and from Palladium Pictures. Before Billy the Kid was an outlaw, he was a headline. Dugan Bridges joins me onto the stage, if I can get to the right screen. Dugan, welcome to the show, sir.
Jimmy, thanks for having me on.
Pleasure to have you. The name of the new director, the new film is called The Making of Billy the Kid. Talk about the making of Billy the Kid. We know Billy the Kid, the outlaw, and there's a part of Billy the Kid pre-outlaw that we might find fascinating.
Exactly. So, there's been tons of movies and songs, published about books, published about Billy the Kid. But most people don't know that he actually was deputized at one point, even as a teenager, before he became an outlaw. And I thought that was really, really interesting because that's like kind of never covered, in the movies that we see. But so what fascinated me about his story was what took a guy who was on the side of the law and put him against it, turned him against the law to where he felt like he needed to bring justice into his own hands. And so that kind of revolves around this murder that happened at Blackwater Draw, which, a lot of us don't know about, but it led to Billy becoming the legend that he did, where he went on to murder the sheriff of Lincoln County, start a war in New Mexico that eventually had federal troops sent in to wipe everybody out.
So you go from being deputized to starting the Lincoln County Wars, famous in the Wild West folklore there. You go for there. What was it what was that trigger? What was the gap between those 2 seasons of his life? How did we end up from deputy to sheriff murderer?
Yeah, great question, because that's really what this film focuses on. So what happened was Billy was kind of a vagabond. He was a cowboy and he worked on a ranch in New Mexico. And his boss was a guy who had moved in from England named John Tunstall. And he started a ranch that was competing against this monopoly that was in New Mexico. So it was kind of dangerous. And the sheriff was essentially paid off to go and kill John Tunstall. Billy was there when it happened, when his boss was murdered, and they claimed, the sheriff and police claimed that John Tunstall had attacked them when he hadn't, right? So Billy at that point didn't even strike back at that very moment, surprisingly. Him and the regulators, who was actually led by Dick Brewer. Billy was never the leader of the regulators, interestingly. But the regulators went back and got deputized at that point by the Justice of the Peace, who, it's a little confusing, but there's a Justice of the Peace. He deputized them to bring in some of the posse that had murdered their boss, right? And so they capture some of them, and this is where they have badges at this point, and they're bringing them back to Lincoln. But this is kind of this is what's in shades of gray as to what happened, because the two guys they captured, they killed on the way back to Lincoln. But they basically believed that the sheriff, who had been paid off to kill their boss, that he was not going to find these guys guilty, obviously, because he hired them to go do that thing, right? So they felt like, okay, we bring him back, we're not going to get justice in the courts. So they were divided as to should we bring him back alive or dead, and so they wound up dead. And at that point, people on the Dolan side paid rang up the governor, and the governor stripped them, the regulators, of their deputized status. And so at that point, they were like exposed, right? Yeah. And probably going to be hung for the retaliation that they did. So at that point, three options. You run. At that point, New Mexico's a territory. You could just flee to Mexico or something, right, to spare your life, or go into another state. Or if you stay, you're choosing to fight back, and Billy famously chose to fight back instead of run. But to me, it's really a story of that he felt like he couldn't get justice, through the court system. Yeah. So he took matters into his own hands. Led to fight.
The voice of Dugan Bridges, you're listening later, as thousands do on the podcast version of the show, is writer and director of Blackwater Draw, The Making of Billy the Kid. And you can also see on the screen the other projects, or the work that he does to get films out there. We'll talk more about that in just a second. All right, I'm reading some of the reviews of the film, and I can't wait to see the entire thing. But it seems like there may be some parallels. I mean, there's the historic perspective of Billy the Kid, but it seems as if there's some themes that that the journalist of the day. Well, let me read the phrase that I have here as it was reviewed at Real Clear Politics. Journalism can expose injustice or just as easily entrench it. And through dramatic reenactments and investigation, this film traces how reporting can fix a narrative even when the truth remains contested. Are you saying there might have been some fake news even back in the days of Billy the Kid? That's just not something we have now?
Yeah, isn't that amazing to see how far it goes back? It feels like something that we've just battled now in the modern age and the rise of social media and all of that. But yeah, it was going on over 100 years ago. So this is how it plays out. So James Dolan was part of the Santa Fe cartel, and he had a ranch, right? But he was connected to paying off the sheriff, the governor, etc. And part of that cartel and ring was the Santa Fe News, and that was the largest newspaper in the region. So they had the biggest voice, and they were on the side of Dolan. So they painted the regulators and Billy the Kid as enemy number one, right? And ruthless killers, basically. But our what's unique about our story is that we actually don't tell this through the lens of the regulators or the Dolan faction. We tell it through the eyes of a local reporter. And this was based off a real true character. There was a real independent newspaper at that time called the Mesilla Independent in that area. And that owner went into the fog of war and interviewed everyone. the Dolan side and the regulator side. And because of that, we have now like kind of a more accurate depiction of what was going on at that time. But the Santa Fe Ring wasn't happy with them, but it was a small publication. It was only going to reach kind of that area. So it does kind of, remind me of, say, larger media outlets now versus social media, right? And people able to get news out on their own from their phone in a way that's kind of what you see the Independent was. And what is interesting about that guy, he was a retired colonel from maybe the Civil War, but he was a retired colonel, and in the end, he ended up representing Billy the Kid in court to try and clear his name of any wrongdoing after he killed the Sheriff Brady. So he obviously was on the side of Billy in the end.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated why it is a filmmaker and author, somebody takes up a project. You can maybe it ties to other films you've done. You can talk about those, but what is it that caught your attention? And you said, I've got to do this Blackwater Draw story, the making of Billy the Kid. What was it that captivated you, motivated you to put the time, effort, energy, and treasure into a film about Billy the Kid?
It really started with a retired U.S. Marshal who lives out in New Mexico in the Lincoln County region. I met him and heard his story, and he basically, in his free time now, tries to solve cold cases of the Old West. And I thought that was so interesting. And he had one in Blackwater Draw in New Mexico, and so he was able to get on the land. It's privately owned as a ranch. And he was able to get on the land and find bullet shells from the 1880s from the actual killing that had happened. Not only that, Lincoln is actually, they have not built on it at all. I mean, it's like a museum piece. It is how it looks from the 1800s. There's gravestones off the road from that time period. They haven't allowed any construction. And he was able to get a blood sample from Billy the Kid, from that. So he's collecting all this like evidence and then doing some like radar scans into the ground and everything. And so that actually what he's doing with that is what drew me into this story and how I found out about it.
Talk about the other work you do, of course, the Blackwater Draw, the making of Billy the Kid, but you're involved in other projects. You've been involved in other projects. You're trying to help other people incubate projects. Talk about the work that you do, Dugan Bridges.
Sure. Well, I mean, I do narrative, documentary, and commercial work. I'll give a shout out to Palladium Pictures because they're the ones who funded this, and they run an incubator. So if anyone listening knows a filmmaker who would like to apply to it, they give out grants of about $35,000 per film, and they coach you through it for the entirety of the year. It's led by Michael Pack, who is a producer who's produced about 10 to 15 feature documentaries that have reached distribution. They're based out of DC, but I went through that program. That's how I got this funding. It's really hard to find money to make films because 99% of them do not make a profit. So it's definitely a labor of love. And so I'll give them a shout out.
Palladium Pictures. Now, if folks want to see Blackwater Draw, the making of Billy the Kid, the writer and director is with us, Dugan Bridges. If they want to see Blackwater Draw, when is it available? Where do they go see it?
It's available now. You can Google Real Clear Politics Blackwater Draw, and it'll pop up, and you can watch it on their platform.
Now, that's what caught my attention, a film about Billy the Kid, and we kind of talked about the fake news narrative, etc. How does a film like Billy the Kid, the making of the Blackwater Draw, the making of Billy the Kid, end up on Real Clear Politics? Anybody's not familiar with Real Clear Politics, it's a fantastic site. Gives you kind of a portal of editorials and op-eds from different news sources, left, right, and center. How does Billy the Kid story end up on realclearpolitics.com? What's a tie-in there?
That is a really good question. So that I'm trying to figure out myself, but I think that the program from Palladium Pictures, that they do is documentary, and so that they have a distribution deal with Real Clear Politics to get those subjects on. And so this originated as a documentary. It's more of a narrative film now, but I think it got greenlit and put on there because of the themes you were talking about that have to do with government corruption and people fighting back, that have to do with how media, steers narrative on whether something's true or not. That I think that just being something that everyone can relate to in this day and age, is what got it on there as a piece of entertainment that you can enjoy as well.
Last quick question. For those who don't know, you kind of studied the corruption. Billy the Kid chose to stay and fight. Billy the Kid met, kind of talk about how it all ended for Billy the Kid, and how did the end come? If folks don't know the Billy the Kid story.
Yeah, so Billy really became famous after killing Sheriff Brady and then getting arrested, sentenced. He was the only person officially charged for murder out of the Lincoln County War when tons of people died. Interesting fact. But with that, he was in jail. He famously escaped, like killing 2 deputies. So it's like he felt like he could never be killed. He was only like 21 or 22 around that time. But then he would stay with families around the region, and a friend of his, Pat Garrett, killed him, supposedly. But this might be the only area where like legend now comes into play for Billy, because a lot of what was reported on him is true. But legend is that possibly because Pat Garrett was a friend of his, it was a staged, death, and Billy actually escaped and went on to live many, many years.
Yeah, so, there's been documentaries or people that have supposedly walked up to this old guy's house and think it was Billy the Kid, and he wouldn't refute or deny it. So no one knows. No one knows. He might have been living up until a few years ago. I said one more question. I got one more. As you knew going in with Billy the Kid perception, you see the headlines of the day. You see how Billy the Kid is reported on today. What's the truth about Billy the Kid? He was an outlaw. He was justified. I mean, what was the biggest, I guess, shocker when you were making the film, doing the research for the film, that you said, wow, even in modern day, they don't tell me about this part of Billy the Kid, and the people of his day didn't know about that part of Billy the Kid? What was that big aha moment, like, wow, maybe the narrative hasn't been right?
Yeah. The big aha moment was that Billy actually tried to do the right thing in the beginning. And I was really surprised by that. That when, their boss was clearly taken out from people with a lot of connections. They didn't just like shoot to kill from the beginning. They tried to go through the court system, and they tried to go through the court system for some time. Even the governor stripping them of deputized status wasn't legal. The governor did not have the right to do that in that case. So the walls were really closing in on them. And when the U.S. Troops were sent in to basically take Dolan's side and wipe out the regulators, which is what happened, I'd say like the retaliation to that was like the governor got replaced. And Posse Comitatus was passed.
Wow.
I'm directly related to that.
Dugan Bridges, writer and director of the Blackwater Draw, The Making of Billy the Kid. Again, go to realclearpolitics.com if they want to see this film. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And if they want to follow you, learn more about you and your other work you have done and are working on, where do they go?
They can find me, Dugan Bridges, on Instagram.
Dugan Bridges, I appreciate it. I need a screenwriter. You know any good screenwriters?
Yeah, I'm a screenwriter, and I know some other ones. So,
all right, I'll reach out. I'll talk.
Yeah, reach out to me. We can talk later.
You got it, Dugan. I appreciate you. Dugan Bridges, the director of Blackwater Draw, The Making of Billy the Kid, right here on the program. And I got to hit the right button, and boom, there we go. Dugan, thank you very much. Blackwater Draw, looking for Dugan Bridges on the IG. Delilah, see if we can find Dugan Bridges on the Instagram, because you know my Instagram, right? I hope so. It's Jimmy Lakey. So we'll get to Dugan there in just a bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have all of you here on the show. A pleasure to be here. A little diversion from the politics of the day, but sometimes that's good to do. I just love the history tie of how fake news was operating back in the days of old Billy the Kid. And his fake news was painted a narrative that maybe you still have today. I always found that fascinating, too, that supposedly Pat Garrett did kill Billy the Kid. That was the rumor. But was that a staged death so that Billy the Kid could go and live? Was it West Texas or New Mexico? This guy lived, and a lot of folks speculated that was Billy the Kid. And he wouldn't confirm nor deny it. I forgot the guy's name. I've seen interviews with him, and or read interviews, I should say, with him. It's fascinating that Billy the Kid might have continued to live and had a death staged so that he could move forward, because Pat Garrett was ultimately his friend. So fascinating stories of the Wild West. I love that era. And I spent a lot of time in that portion of New Mexico when I was first getting started in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. My mother was a New Mexican for a period of time. My grandparents were. So I know the area, Lincoln County. It's a desolate area, but when you get the history of it, it becomes much more beautiful. And you're not far from Roswell, New Mexico either. So you can have cowboys and aliens. It's a fantastic marriage in that area of the Southwest. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news story today is that former Prince Andrew has been arrested. He's been arrested in the UK, being held for investigation of corruption, basically, or of a government official. And it looks like the initial inquiry is not about the relationship with females or people or underage minors or trafficking. It has to do with sharing of documents that he might have done while he was a representative of the British government back in the early 2000s. That seems to be, again, I don't have the full story here. It's a breaking, developing story. I'm sure the UK press is going crazy today. I wish I was flying to Europe right now with the layover in Europe. I'm sure it's everywhere. They get a lot more news on it. But it looks like the arrest is really stemming from, did he share documents back in the early 2000s with Jeffrey Epstein when he was a representative for trade for the United Kingdom? Now, are there going to be some more tantalizing and tawdry charges brought against him? I'm not sure, but he has been taken into custody. And the speculation is that what does this mean for the royal family? I don't think anybody exactly knows, but it's the first time in modern history that a high-ranking member of the royals has been arrested, and we shall see how it all pans out. King Charles has responded to the arrest of his brother, and he says that there must be the law must reign, and find out exactly what happened. So it's going to be a breaking story, I'm sure, for the next couple of days. But as of right now, Prince Andrew was cuffed and stuffed, and former Prince Andrew, and he is now under investigation and being questioned. And I'm not sure if he knew the arrest was coming. There's speculation that there's others. That does bring up, there's been a lot. American media is not reporting a lot of it. There's been high-powered bankers, attorneys, former political advisors to Obama, a lot of people that have stepped down from their position. Larry Summers is one. I mean, all these people that have been stepping down, it's not being covered. Now, remember their obsession that Donald Trump's in the Epstein files. And they would cover that wall to wall if there was any accolades or truth to it. They perpetrated lies about him. But there have been some pretty high-ranking Americans, and let's say influential Americans, that have had to step down and or drift off into the darkness because of their implication in the Epstein files. Once the Epstein, remember the people a couple of weeks ago that kept coming in from YouTube squawking about Epstein, and then they finally released the rest of the documents. You find out that Donald Trump was calling the local police back in the early 2000s saying, you got to get this guy. He's a pervert, man. He was actually the original whistleblower on Epstein, and suddenly the Epstein story doesn't seem to be as tantalizing and as exciting for the people that have the Trump derangement syndrome. They only wanted the Epstein files, not so that they're heroes or not so that anybody on either side of the aisle or political persuasion could be held accountable. They only wanted the Epstein files because they were hoping they could nail Donald Trump. That again shows the sick and twisted mind of some people. Before we have Jay Ratliff on the show, I mentioned yesterday the death of Sarah. Sarah's a beautiful woman, old lady that died, and she was taking care of some kids. And some of you might have missed it. I want to show this video once. I want to show it again. This is an interview I did with her. She passed away over the weekend, leaving us scrambling to take care of some of the orphans she was taking care of. But this is Sarah and I, right? And for that building behind is our first building at Legacy Christian Academy, the school we started there and our building there. But this is Sarah, me talking to Sarah. I'm speaking a little slow because I have an interpreter that's trying to interpret back to her and get it all on camera. So this is her talking about the kids and talking about the house she lived in. And thank you, by the way, anybody who donated yesterday. We do appreciate it. Keep those donations in. And so I thought it was going to be all about the food this week. And it is, but it just shows that it's not just about the food at the school. With Rivers Promise, we take care of kids even when they go home from school because nobody else is advocating. There's no social worker hanging out there going, how do we help Stephen? How do we help John to do? They're not there. We're there. And when you donate today, you're helping us do this. And this is another set. Last 2 months ago, we had to deal with a young lady who was in our school and she lived pretty far away and experienced, let's say, a sexual assault, a very tragic thing, and we dealt with that. We're social services, and we're glad to be the social services when we have to be. But this is an interview with Sarah, who again tragically passed away, or suddenly passed away. Is an old lady, but passed away this weekend. And this is the interview I did with her. Go ahead.
Sarah, she's a widow. She has no real education, but she takes care of these three boys right here. Stephen, we've told his story many times. This is his brother, Eric. I think we're getting him on camera. And that's John Dedu. She takes care of all three of them. Two of them, the brothers, their mother died and father's gone. And then John Dedu, he has a tragic story. His mother's in jail for the rest of her life. And so he has no one because his father was killed. So here they are, and they all take care of him. And I asked Sarah, Amakuru. Yes. Yes. Yes, I talked to Jonas yesterday about trying to find a help for your roof. So we're going to work on that for you. Thank you. Thank you.
She thank God. Yezu no mugabo ukomeye. Yezu no mugabo w'intwara hindura amateka hindura ibyanze guhinduka. Yezu wenyine no ufite uko abigenza bikemera.
She thank Jesus and Jimmy.
Well, thank Jesus a lot. Talk about these boys you raised. How did you just take care of them? So before they came to our school here, what did they do? Did they go to school or they just stay at home? When you heard that they had sponsors and were coming to school, what did you think?
I bet
they will help you. They will help you. Thank you for taking care of the boys. And we're going to work on your roof. We're going to check and see what we can do to help you. Bye-bye. Hello, Eric. Stephen. Hello. She takes care of them all by herself. No resources, no anything. She just manages. They get food at school, but other than that, that's what she does.
I love it how when I was talking to her, I'll never forget that. And a lot of that was cut down because there was some translation going on in between. So that was edited down so we didn't have to hear the back and forth of the translator. But there's Sarah there with the boys, and there's a photo bomber in the back. But there's on the far right, you're right, the blue shirt. On the far right that's John Dedu. He's the boy that saw his mother kill his father. In the middle of Stephen, he's the kid that we found near death with hepatitis. Got him in a program, saved his life. And that's little Eric there next to him, the little younger brother, and he's here. And there's old Sarah. And we're happy to take care of those kids, and they're all happy little boys, and we're doing the Lord's work. But I love how when I started talking to Sarah, I asked her how she's doing. It wasn't cut down. She really hijacked the conversation. I said, how you doing? She goes, oh, yes, but my roof is bad. You got to fix her roof. And sure enough, we got photos of her roof. And it was kind of the metal roof, part thatch, part metal. And it had holes all in it. And it's a wood. If you ever go with it, you'll know that we're not talking suburban homes. We're talking at the very best a stucco type home. With kind of a pressed down dirt floor that somehow they get it hard as a rock. But when the rain comes in on that dirt, it packs back up. and they'll sweep the dirt and get it. It's the cleanest dirt you've ever seen in your life. But she had holes in her roof, and it's a tropical rainforest, and in Rwanda. And so when the rainy season comes, her house was flooding, and everybody's trying to get into the high part of the house because there's water standing. So we had to fix the roof. That was something we did. But she did. She just decided those boys were street kids, and that's what would have happened as of this weekend had we, as Rivers Promise, not been there. They would be street kids again. I can't tell you, the first time I read the letter, I get letters and they come in by the stacks, and I've got a stack that I need to go through. This they came last week for letters for sponsors. And the first time I read one, it was too early for this. I read it, said, Jimmy, I've realized now because of you and the sponsor I have, I don't have to be a prostitute. And it hit me. I said, wow, they understand the reality of what they're facing there, that when you don't have a social safety net and when you have extreme poverty, if you don't have a way out of the extreme poverty, then you just got to survive any way you possibly can. And the boys who don't have, they're orphans or they're street kids or abandoned, whatever happens, they end up being street kids. They end up learning the ways to survive on the street. How do you survive on the street? You beg. You're doing all sorts of maybe illegal behavior. You're gambling. You're pickpocket. You're doing things that you maybe it's not in your nature, but it is a matter of survival, and that's what they have there. And young ladies, unfortunately, I started reading these letters, and I've had more than one come from girls saying, thank you. I probably realized that my friends that I've known when I was a kid, they didn't get to go to school, and they've had to become prostitutes. And one of them wrote a letter saying many of them have had many kids, and that's what happens. And then they perpetuate the cycle. They have all these kids from these different men. They were just trying to survive, but now they've made the problem worse because they have these mouths to feed, and the cycle goes on generationally. So what we're trying to do is break that generational cycle, and you can help us do that. So a donation today would be very helpful. I sent out this to a couple of them, I think a couple of board members last night that had asked me, what are we short this month? And I got to get the total count, what processed yesterday, but about $3,000 to $5,000 short for this month. So anybody help us out, let us know. I know we had a beautiful donation come in, 2,000, there's a couple of big donations come in yesterday. We appreciate all of you, but if you can help us out, again, $9 buy some eggs, you can help us out. But you're not just putting eggs in the classroom. You're not just putting vegetables. You're making sure and helping us make sure that when tragedy happens and the caretaker of boys who have already had abandonment trauma in their life, when that crap blows up and hits the fan, real life hits, it's not just about putting on a beautiful uniform and being smiley at Legacy Christian Academy, that we want to let them know that we're their advocate as well, back in the confines of poverty. We're trying to help them get out of there, but these kids should not have to fight their own causes, and we're helping them do that. So any donation, go to riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Let me show you two more quick photos. I showed this yesterday. That was Stephen when we first met him. We just bought him some new shoes. We cleaned the kid up so we could take him to the doctor because he was really sick with hepatitis, and that's how he cleaned up. Look, his producer Chad said, look, he's posing like a model. He's very happy. And then this is Stephen. You'll see him in the background in a red shirt, sitting in his classroom, Legacy Christian Academy. That was the day they didn't have a uniform for some reason. They always have uniforms on. But you can see the plates are clean. They're happy to eat. And again, what you donate to today is not just for food. It's about literally saving kids' lives, keeping them out of street behavior, prostitution, and that's the reality that we live in. This is not a unusual one-off story. This is some real stuff that happens on a regular basis. All right, waiting for the arrival of Jay Ratliff. He has not made it in yet. We'll give him a couple of more seconds. He did confirm the stock market might have snuck up on him, and he's out stating trading stocks right now. Well, the Dow's down right now. He may be, but Jay doesn't really care. Jay, if you know Jay's trading technique, he's a little different in how he trades. He'll hold a stock for 60 seconds, 2 minutes, or 5 minutes. He doesn't. Yeah, he's a true day trader. He is. All right, good to have you here on the program. Can I remind you, we'll wait for Jay to show up here. Sherry Cree, her website is homeswithsherry.com. How's your house? You ever thought of moving? You ever thought of downsizing? I live in a big house for just me, And I've thought about downsizing, but the problem in Colorado is nowhere to downsize to. Colorado has become such a hellaciously expensive place. It's easier for me to keep my big house than it is to go to a smaller house, because the smaller houses are as much as what I paid for my big house, because Jared Polis and the Democrats have so effed this state up. It is absolutely ridiculous. Listen, I don't know what your real estate needs are. I don't know if you're planning to move out of state, in state, transfer. I don't know if you want to downsize, upsize. Maybe you don't like your neighborhood. Maybe you want a better school district. Whatever it is you do, real estate can be that thing that can create generational wealth. It can really set you up even in your retirement. It can set your kids up, your grandkids up. It can just really give your family something that passes on, whether the money from the house, it just affect generations. And you need to recognize the importance of it. This is why the importance of who you have as your realtor is so important. You don't want to just have somebody give a business card. You know them. They're your aunt. They're your neighbor. They sold a house for you 5 years ago. Listen, 70% of realtors did absolutely zero transactions last year, which means why? They're either not good, they're out of practice, or not trying, they're not connected. It's just kind of a hobby for them. And then there's people that are active. They're closing. They're networking. They're always on the go. And Sherry Cree, known her for a long time, Sherry's always on the go. I don't know if she ever slows down. I don't know if she ever stops going to fundraising dinners or to networking events. And she's always connecting. And why is she doing it? Not just to grow herself professionally, but so that she can meet people and make sure that when you list your house, that she's connected and she can help you get that top dollar. Or if you're going to buy a home, she can kind of keep up with the trends of why you might want to move one block or two blocks or two neighborhoods here or there. She can really help you. You got to have a conversation with her. If you don't hire her as a realtor, that's okay, but you have to interview her first. You're going to interview realtors. Don't just assume that all the realtors you know are going to be the ones you're going to use. No, you find the best one that's going to help you. Go to our website, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, that I-25 corridor up and down the 25 here in Colorado from the Denver Metro going south down to the Park Meadows, Castle Rock, if you want to Highlands Ranch, going up north into the Fort Collins, Eaton, Windsor, you get the idea. That I-25 corridor, she can help you. Also, maybe you're heading a little bit west. She's got a lot of expertise and knows people have expertise up for mountain properties. And if you're out of state or out of the area, call her anyway. She's so connected. She can probably connect you with someone of like mind, like spirit, and like work ethic. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Be sure to tell her that I'm talking about her, and she'll be on the show with us tomorrow, homeswithsherry.com. Hey, tomorrow, all of you folks in Texas, I want you to give me a report. How is that U.S. Senate primary working out? It's on my show sheet today. I did not get to it. Of course, John Thune, is that his name? Yeah, he's the, Cornyn, or John Cornyn. Cornyn is the senator there, and he's being primary challenged by Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, and there's a congressperson also challenging him. So John Cornyn is in a primary challenge, and we'll see. Cornyn is saying if Paxton beats me, there's a lot of bad blood between you. He said it's going to be a disaster, and Democrats will win the seat. So I want to get all you Texans to comment tomorrow on that primary race for U.S. Senate, not just for the Republicans, but the Democrats. Old Jazzy Crockett, she's running to be the Democrat nominee, and there's another guy that was going to be the Democrat nominee. It looks like the establishment, the Hollywood types, are turning on Jazzy, and you saw that Stephen Colbert wanted to have her opponent on his show. CBS News says you can't have him. That would violate equal time. So if you're going to have him on, you need to have Crockett on. You need to have the Republicans on. You can't just pick a side and pick a random federal candidate and interview them. And I know this from radio. It's just illegal. Colbert made himself a victim because that's what these leftist wimps do. They pretend that they're being victimized by somebody. But anyway, Texas tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit about your Senate race. And we got a lot of viewers in Texas. And if you're listening later in the day in Texas, tune in live, and we'd like to get your takes on the U.S. Senate race primary that's coming up, Republicans and Democrats in Texas. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess Jay Ratliff got tied up, and I apologize that he's not here. I'll see if he can get rescheduled with us. Sometimes his schedule just mixes up, and he misses a hit, and today looks like it's going to be one of those days. Everybody go to Rivers Promise. Tomorrow's the magic day that I need to be wiring some money over there. We're short. You can help us out. Rivers Promise. Give in honor of Sarah. That's what you should do. Yeah. Riverspromise.org. 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 And, we got to do the memes. I didn't do the memes, did I? Well, shoot. Thank you, Producer Chad, for popping that up on the screen for me. Producer Chad's like, hit you. Hold it in, buddy. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes I get distracted. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. I'm like Superman, but instead of having supervision, I require supervision. Don't say a thing, Delilah. That's not true. Kind of is. I like that play on words. That's a good play on words. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. That's so small, I got to blow the screen up here. I got a small screen, so when they do that one, I can't see it. Things that I'm working on in 2026. Number one, having more patience. That's not going well. Not assuming everyone is retarded. That's also going badly. And being more approachable. Yeah, that's going even worse. 2026. Just, it happens. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is your reminder that fitness after 50s is less about how you look and more about wiping your own arse and being able to get off the toilet unassisted in the years to come. That's depressing. That's what are we trying to do? Depress everyone? That's supposed to make us laugh. That does not make me laugh. That makes me go, Delilah, make sure my gym membership's up. I got to work on that. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Bottom of my globe fell off. This couldn't be more accurate. Looks like it's George Washington. It's like they didn't listen at all. And Jesus says, yeah, bro, the same. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. It's like raising a teenager. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Lefticals, we need a women president. Also lefticals, women aren't smart enough to get an ID. Also lefticals can't define what a woman is. That's true. Lefticals. Yeah. I like the word lefticals. Now, I've called them your breasticles before, but I've never used the word lefticals. I think it works. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. The left, we need a woman president. Also the left, women can't get ID. Also the left, what's a woman? Did we just do this one? Different photo, though. Different. There's Kamala and Hillary. Here we go. Round and around the globe. Was I hallucinating in one? Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one. There we go. China has chimed in. It's no more thieving of intellectual property. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize to each of you that I almost forgot the memes. And I know some of you stick around to the end of the show only because you want to see the memes that producer Chad pulls out and puts up there. So I apologize if I almost disappointed you. Kate, speaking of a guy who needs supervision, he flew in and rescued the memes for the day. He's a meme hero. Different than a jukebox hero, but yeah, 80s reference. Forget it, Delilah. You won't get it. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Jay Ratliff, I missed you today. I don't know where you went, but you broke my heart. Catch you tomorrow. Everybody, God bless you. Don't forget riverspromise.org. Riverspromise.org. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey, and I say unto you, my friends, peace. I'm out of here.